Hi there, it's your friend Phil, Project Management Trainer and Coach. Today we're taking a look at the initiating process group. In initiating, we have two processes. We have the develop project charter process, and as the name implies, this is where the project charter is developed. So we get a project charter which authorizes the project, which authorizes the project manager to apply resources to the project. We get that project charter out of the develop project charter process. Now, pay close attention to the fact that the project charter is issued by the project sponsor, also known in some instances as the project initiator. The project initiator could be internal to the firm or external. Same thing for the project sponsor. The project sponsor is that individual who provides the resources to complete the project. The project sponsor or initiator is usually a manager external to the project and someone at the right level in the organization. Someone on the right level that is equivalent to the visibility of the project. You see, the larger a project initiative is, the higher the level of the project sponsor typically should be. So the project sponsor or initiator is responsible for the issuance of the project charter. It's that person's signature on the charter that makes it worth anything. You know, in some firms, people just start projects without a charter, but in the world of the PMI, hey, if you're taking the PMP exam or any other exam, just remember, no charter, no project. If there is no project charter, the project is not formally authorized. The project should not be carried out. In fact, it's not a project. So the project charter contains the authorization to start the project. It could also be the authorization to go ahead with a phase. You have items such as the high-level scope described, a brief deliverable description, not going overboard because this is not the place for detail, okay? High-level risks, high-level schedule, the milestone schedule could be in the project charter, and mention could be made of people who will eventually be recorded as stakeholders. Now, one thing about this project charter is the project manager, although not, in quote, responsible for the issuance of the charter, could actually help the project sponsor in developing the charter. In a lot of firms, the project manager knows what to do when they've been told, hey, you're going to be the project manager, and we would like you to work on the charter with the sponsor. Or sometimes the project manager might find him or herself working alone on the charter, and that's okay. But just remember, in the world of the PMI, the signature on that charter is that of the sponsor or initiator. Okay? You might want to read a little bit more into this in the PMBOK guide to understand the entities that could be looked at as sponsors of a project. I would suggest you look into that. Read the PMBOK guide a little bit more, okay? There's a lot of subsurface detail in the PMBOK guide, which a lot of people miss, and they come across that stuff on the exam without them even knowing. So read up that section in the PMBOK guide, 4.1. Go through the entire 4.1 and understand what this is all about. Now, this project charter becomes an input to another process initiating known as identify stakeholders. Remember I said the project charter has some information about people who will eventually be recorded as stakeholders? Well, that's why this project charter is a sensible input to this process, identify stakeholders. And how do we identify stakeholders on a project? Well, stakeholders know each other, and we could identify 3 stakeholders who could help you identify 3 more each. And you end up having 9, and it's just a geometric progression. If you really do it well, you can find people who are truly, truly important stakeholders to consider on your project. Okay? So identify stakeholders gives us an output. When we're done, we should come out with a stakeholder register. It's a document that has the information of these stakeholders. It could have their names, it could have their level in the organization, their position in the organization, whether they are neutral, whether they are resistors to the project, whether they're positive stakeholders. It could also have the project requirements on an individual level. It could have so much information going into a stakeholder analysis. You should carry out a stakeholder analysis. People say, oh, I don't have time to do that on the project. You're wasting potential time for getting low hanging fruit, because think about it, 10 minutes. If you don't spend that 10 minutes in identifying stakeholders with your team, do you know how much money and effort and time you could waste and lose? If only you identify those key people early than identifying them too late, after the project has gone, after mistakes have been made, after um, potential areas of input from these stakeholders have been bypassed. You see, I encourage project managers to do a stakeholder analysis up front. Read this in the PMBOK guide. Go to chapter 13.1 and read about how to carry out a stakeholder analysis using your power interest grid. Simple power interest grid, 10-minute exercise on every project. I mean, if you are studying this stuff, why not put it to practice? Because it helps. It helps to discuss your stakeholders, to know who they are, where they are, what's their level of power or interest in the eyes of your team members. You might have a perception of a stakeholder, but your team members may have a different perception. And it's when you put all of this stuff, when you balance it all out and you find out whether your perception is right, or when you consider other perspectives of these stakeholders, it really goes a long way. A lot of times team members end up sharing information that they've experienced, working with these stakeholders, that is definitely worthy of the project manager to consider and put in that stakeholder register. So anyway, this is the first of several videos on initiating. Next, we'll be taking a deeper look into the develop project charter process. We'll be taking a look as these videos go on at the inputs and the tools and techniques. So see you in the next video. Thanks for your audience and all the best on the PMP exam.